tonight, one thing that has just been passionate for me and understanding as we grow into bigger and larger opportunities is understanding debt. And I have looked back on this, and a lot of you guys are probably very familiar with 2007, 8, and 9, when I remember I had a letter from GE Capital that had a loan to do a multi-unit complex. Well, this was about early 2008, and I convinced Tom and Dr. Playfair, who was also here, said, let's buy this land because we've got our loan. We're going to do some construction. Well, 6 months later, GE Capital pulls the commitment letter and says, and I said, wait, you can't pull the commitment letter. That's our debt. That's what we're going to go forward with on the construction. They said, sue me. And they said, like, we're out of here. You know, and I was going, what do we do? We got through it, but it was a lesson learned that over time, you know, I thought it was very important that we share that lesson and the lessons we're learning right now. And I think things that may happen in the future, to just be aware of it. So what I wanted to go around today and have Cheryl Higley come up from Berkeley Point Capital. But the things I asked her to look into is, one, I think we're very fortunate to be in the state of Texas, you know, doing multifamily. I mean, the state of Texas is growth, jobs, and growth. It's a big deal. I think we all should be I mean, this is not happening in other parts of the country. We can invest like this locally. The other thing I asked her to kind of look into was interest rate risk. You know, what do we see interest rates doing over the next 2, 3, 4 years? Really, nobody knows. You know, timing of the market, I think, is an Achilles heel for everybody. And so one thing I want to make sure we took away from this is that timing of the market is not a good solution or an investment strategy. I mean, you've really got to have opportunities and exit strategies, entry points and exit points that you understand what's going on. Then the third thing I really want to have her visit with you guys on is, you know, how do you align when a sponsor comes to you with an investment, including us, how do you align your goals with their offering memorandum and their pro forma and the debt that's associated with that asset? Because the debt can make the deal or kill the deal, okay? And I just want you guys to be very aware of what that debt structure needs to look like and the questions you need to be asking. So I will stop talking right now and turn this over to our pro. Let me introduce Cheryl Higley from Berkeley Point Capital. There. Take it away, Cheryl. Yeah. Cheryl and I met about 3 years ago. I was on a 3 years ago? Yeah. Was it that long? Mid 2015? Yeah. Okay. What was it, 5 years ago? Oh, no. No. And her company and Cheryl specifically handled our transaction on the refinance that we did on one of our projects. And this was part of our exit strategy. They did such a fantastic job that, I mean, Cheryl and I became quick friends because it was a big transaction. It had time parameters around it, and it was a large transaction. And she did such a good job. We had gone back to her multiple times. We really use her as a resource for saying what type of debt should we look, what type of equity should we look. Berkeley Point Capital has 30 years of experience in the commercial business. They're servicing $58 billion in loans right now. Yeah. And Cheryl's been in that space for at least 15 years, if not 20 years. And I said, Cheryl, you're the best one to come help us talk in layman's terms about what we need to be looking for as investors, as equity partners, as debt partners. You know, how do we need to look at opportunities moving forward? And so we lean on Cheryl quite a bit. So I asked her to come out and talk. So let's give her another hand and thank her for the time to come up here, Cheryl. Come on. You want to take control of this?
Sure.
Okay.
There's a clicker right there, Cheryl. All right. You may have to zoom through what he. Okay.
I'm already not doing it right.
Little arrows.
I'm on Ray Charles. So I just want to let you guys know. So I'm a loan originator with Berkeley Point. So what I do is I go out and source the business. I find the clients, and you know, I've been doing this so long, so I kind of follow the clients wherever they go nationwide. But I've been in Texas for over 20 years, and so part of what I do and I love is Texas, and you know, the lending that we do here. So that's. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of talk through kind of the vision, how I work at things, and then how I work with the underwriters to get the loans approved, but also to figure out the best strategy for, how you're going to be owning this property, how's it going to be exiting. So this is just the background on me. But one of the reasons why I want to focus on tonight is just a little bit about Texas and why it's just such a healthy market to be in. It continues to lead, job creation, nationwide. Our cost of living continues to be lower than the U.S. average. I mean, it continues to go on and on. We've still got more companies that are relocating here because, more, corporate income tax. So that goes into how we look at the rents, on all these properties. We may be looking at a property here differently than we are in Oklahoma or Missouri or Kansas or Nebraska. One of the things that we look at here, we know that when we're growing these rents in this market, they're going to continue to grow because we're going to be looking at some of these things that we're doing. I'm going to go look at one thing here and then I'll go back to the next screen. But year after year, this is just Austin, for example. There's several cities, but this is just one I pulled, just so you can kind of see how much it outranks the rest of the U.S. average of employment growth. And all that goes back to, the education, the economy, just the no personal income tax. I mean, people can make more money here than they can in Chicago. It's just, people they start to figure it out and they're like, okay, well, that makes more sense now. But the biggest thing here is why people keep moving their companies here is that education. You've got so many colleges and universities here that people are educated, that, the workforce here. So, that's kind of one of the things that we look for as we're doing this. And when we're doing these loans and we're looking at just markets and stuff, these are the things that are going to affect credit decisions, when we're approving loans. If I go to my credit officer and I try to approve, get a deal approved in, I don't know, let me pick somewhere. Maybe Tulsa or something that just struggles a little bit with, economy. It's not going to look like this. And they're going to say, well, okay, we're not going to grow the rents at, 2% a year. Maybe we'll grow them at 1.5% per year. That's going to affect your exit strategy, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So all these things kind of come into play. So we like strong, healthy markets in Texas. San Antonio, you guys keep hearing about it. I mean, it's hot. Austin's getting expensive. People are going to San Antonio. What's interesting about this is look at that. It's all going up. And this is the rents per square foot on the rental rates. I mean, even the Class C. I mean, I do a lot of B and C properties in San Antonio, and they're over the dollars. They're over the $1 unit square. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And you're talking like, popcorn ceilings at, $1 a square foot. You're like, really? But they don't have anywhere else to live. They love it. And you know what? You can't get that in Austin. So, they're still loving the rates there. So that's really healthy for us. We look at that and we're like, that is great. That's going to help us on the valuations, on, everything that we're looking at as far as property. Here's something I was just focused on, just Dallas alone. People aren't buying as many houses now. And so now we're looking at this going, this is just one example of Dallas, but 6 out of 10, I mean, are just renters. And that includes, single family rentals and everything, as people are renting those. But it's interesting to realize, we went to another thing a couple weeks ago and they were talking about they don't want to own homes. These kids that are graduating don't want to own homes. When I graduated college, I couldn't wait to buy a house. I thought I'd be grown up. But now it's like nobody wants to buy one anymore.
What did you? There was a thing C.B. Richard Ellis put out, and it was talking about the new tax law, the deductions for mortgage interest rate. Is that what I'm saying? That right? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
interest rate.
Your deductions are going to be far less, but that was even going to make the rental market more demand because the first-time buyers go, well, I don't have a big deduction anymore, then that's one less motivating factor for me to want to go.
Yeah, that's hurting a lot of things. That's hurting us. So I just kind of wanted to point out, these are some of the reasons why we do like Texas.
What is your source of that?
This is from Steve Brown, Dallas Morning News. Okay. I've got several variety of different locations. But yeah,
is that just Dallas? But what is like San Antonio or even Austin? What are the? Do you have data on that, or I'm just?
I didn't pull the data on that. Yeah, I could probably pull it, but yeah, it's.
Is there just something weird about Dallas?
Yeah, I was surprised by this. I was surprised by this because you kind of just think, it's a more mature market. I thought for sure it would be not 6 out of 10. So
because when you really sit down and look at the demographics tell you something different than that. But that's sort of like more hands-on sort of information there.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and that's why Dallas is full, and, they're meeting the supply and demand there. Here's something that Darren didn't want to use on my slides.
No.
But I like this, and I'll tell you why. There's a lot of data, and I know he doesn't like to read a lot, but as you're looking at this, this is what's interesting, okay? When we're talking just about why Texas, why do we like Texas? This is from CBRE. They listed the 20 markets, the top 10, 20 markets with new supply. And as you see this, we've got 4 of the 20, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, they're all absorbing the new supply that's coming in. And it was pretty powerful as you start to look at that. It's they're building it, and, you build it and they will come. And that's just, that's just kind of tells the story of just, we're in there with the Bostons and the Seattles. And I mean, no one's going to ever beat New York, but I mean, we're right up there in Dallas, Fort Worth. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And one thing about this, and the reason I do like this a lot, if you think about, we all live here, invest here, work here, play here. We probably as a group, because we're in this space of accredited investors, we probably see more deals than the average person would see that's even in this space, because we're in Texas, we're accredited investors, we're in this kind of network that we're in. And the reason I do like this is because you're going to see, this is going to be the opportunity. I'm sure everybody in here gets a deal a month, sent you the direction. And when you're evaluating these, you can't invest in all 12 in a year. You can really pick 1, 2, or 3 a year and to make that investment. And that's why I thought it was so important that understanding the amount of activity that's going on in the state of Texas, that this is where that whole debt thing, I have painful memories of what happened to us. And a few of my friends have lost a lot of properties. But that's why I wanted to keep this in. There is a tremendous amount of investment activity in the state.
No, it's healthy. It's just healthy. They're building it and they're filling it up, and it's good for all of us. Even no matter what deal you're looking at in what market, there's good opportunity there. So I do like that. But this is going to tailor into just kind of, as we're looking at these deals and you're looking and you're evaluating and you're, maybe you're looking at a deal in San Antonio and you're looking to invest, looking at these yield curves and kind of how they've done historically. Most of our business that we price off, this is mostly done off the 10-year treasury. If you're going to be doing fixed rate debt, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, even HUD, a lot of the stuff's going to be based off this 10 years. So as we look at this, and how many people do you guys keep up with your investments on what, you guys lock at or what your interest rate is, or?
Yeah, I watch the 10-year treasury every morning.
Yeah.
We have a question. I just watched it for.
Yeah. It'll drive you crazy, but it's.
Crazy.
But so this is what we price most of our stuff off of, okay? And as we get into, I'm going to talk a little bit about the exit strategies and the risk in a little bit, but every time this has a blip here, if we look, this is just last year. Look at how much lower it was. This is in 1 year, you've gone up that high. So let's say we put a deal under loan application, here, and all of a sudden, we're closing, over here. We're like, it's not that I'm tricking anybody about, hey, we're gonna jack up the rate. It's we follow this curve, and it's the markets are gonna expand their spreads over these swaps, and how we're doing these treasuries. So these are important things to look at if you're investing in deals. Keep up with these 10-year treasuries or whoever your deal is being priced out of if you're investing in a deal, because that interest rate is going to be everything, and that's going to be a long-term rate that's going to be secured. Let me show you. Come back to I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to the prime. But when we were talking about that yield curve, and I was saying about those. Do you guys ever see the difference on? You may have an interest rate that's like, hey, we have 4.5%, but you talk to another guy and they're like, well, I've got 4.75. What's the difference? I don't understand how these things are priced. A lot of this depends on how long you're going to do these loans. And part of what these are, they get priced differently. I don't know if you guys get involved with some of like the, on the loan terms, if your principals on these, but so the best deal that you can get for the lowest interest rate is if you can lock out this payoff, okay? Meaning like if I did a 10-year loan and it's not prepayable, it's locked out, okay? That's basically guaranteeing your investor, he's guaranteed that return for the 10 years. That's the cheapest rate.
The investor is the person lending you the money, lending the project the money. So that lockout.
Call JP Morgan or whoever it is.
Yeah.
You know, they're guaranteed that for that long. So you're going to get the cheapest rate on that. The next version that you have is yield maintenance. That's a prepay. You guys may see this a lot. It used to be sometimes they call yield defeasance if you've got that in the CMBS world. On all these multifamily loans, yield maintenance is very popular. Here's the difference between this one and this one. You don't really see this as much, except for like maybe the HUD world. But a yield maintenance and step down, it's a 20 basis point difference between yield maintenance and step down prepay. So let me give you an example. A lot of times we have 10-year loans and they'll say 9.5 years of yield maintenance. Well, you're like, well, what is that? So let's say you have 4.5% as your rate today. Okay, if you're going to go and you're going to unwind that, let's say you want to prepay the loan in year 5, and you're like, hey, we want to do this, we want to prepay this in year 5. If I know that that's your hold in advance, I'm going to tell you, you might want to look at the difference and maybe, you know, choosing a step down prepay, because then you're going to know exactly, you know, you can tell your investors, hey, in year 5, if we're going to sell, and this is what our target is, it's going to be 4% or wherever we structure, you know, your prepays, 4% or 3%. You're going to know exactly what your prepay is. Yield maintenance, you've got a wild card, because it depends on, you're going to have to unwind this, and you're going to have to, it depends on what the prevailing rate is at that point in time, 4 or 5 years out. So that's kind of the unknown. So to 20 basis points difference, this is your insurance policy to get step down prepays, so you know how to get out of it.
At what point do you want us to ask questions? At the end of
Oh, keep going. No, whenever you need. Yeah, go.
Okay. So especially in regards to the yield maintenance and the step down prepays. So I looked at the equations that the lenders use for the yield maintenance, and I wrote a little program that calculates the penalty over time as you move out the loan. And I was surprised to see on how steep the yield maintenance is compared to the step down prepayment penalty.
Huge.
So it's absolutely huge, and I wasn't aware of it until I looked at the equation and graphed it out. So in one of my investments, the deal sponsors were trying to sell the property right now, and yield maintenance basically killed it. And the reason was if you would have a step down prepayment penalty negotiated, for example, let's say 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, etc. But if you look at the yield maintenance and you want to sell because your property is doing really well in year 2 or 3 or 4, I mean, the yield maintenance penalty can be 10% or 12%.
Huge.
So the difference is huge.
And I tell people that, but people don't like to hear it because they like the lower interest rate, but it's.
Paraphrase Oliver's question. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And so I just,
yeah, go ahead.
the only reason that I have discovered so far is where yield maintenance makes sense. Because yield maintenance equations compare the penalty that you would pay against the treasury rates and how much the lender could get by investing in treasury bonds. So if you think that the treasury rate goes up significantly over the last 3 years, then selling it for 5 or 6 years maybe makes yield maintenance attractive. But with the time frame that we are in right now, where interest rates are constant and the rates are pretty low, I couldn't imagine a single case where I wouldn't choose step down payments, prepays, and always over yield maintenance. And I was wondering if I'm missing something.
No. So his question is, so he's in these deals and now you're trying to sell it in year 4 or 5, but the sponsor or the guarantor or whoever is kind of leading the deal decides they want to sell that. My guess is that they knew that up front. You weren't going to hold it for 10 years. That's usually what it is. Okay. And the reason why most people do these 10-year loans, just so you know, is it's a cheaper rate right now. The yield curves, it used to be where 5-year deals were so much cheaper. It's not like that anymore. And so now what we do is, you know, we focus people on the 10-year because that's how Fannie and Freddie are pricing these days. They're more attractive and they're able to sell them a lot easier. So they give you more options on these flexibility for step downs. But in your investor situation, yes, people don't really do the math. And so, you know, typically the first thing I say to somebody is, how long do you think you're going to hold this? And they say 4 or 5 years, and then we're going to sell it. I'm like, you know, you might want to look at this, you know, and they're like, well, the interest rate's higher. I'm like, yeah, the interest rate's higher,
but it's only 20 basis points compared to step down versus yield maintenance. So if you do the math and calculate it out over 4 or 5 years, step down, I would guess, is in most cases a lot cheaper than yield maintenance.
Absolutely. And it costs money to unwind that yield maintenance. So it's not just the penalty. You have to pay for a servicing agent to go and unwind the whole treasury. So, yes. So these things are really important. When you're looking at these deals and you're looking at, you get a PPM from somebody, you're looking at the offering memorandum, and you know, maybe there's existing debt, like on that example you were talking about. A lot of times I've seen in the last month and a half, we've seen where they've got a prepayment penalty. They're building in that yield maintenance into the purchase price. So they're overinflating the purchase price to pay off that yield maintenance penalty. And you're like, okay. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I got a question. So when you're looking at that curve on the step down prepayment versus the yield maintenance, at what year does it make it sort of be advantageous to hold on to the yield maintenance versus the
Usually
step
8 or
down?
9.
So
Usually 8
you're
or
gonna
9.
pretty much hold it out. And typically those are 12-year loans that
They're
you're doing
usually
right
10 or
now?
12s,
10 to 12.
and they'll be priced over the 10 years.
So the step down is independent on how the treasury yield.
Doesn't
changes,
matter.
Right?
It's a
Yield
fixed
maintenance
prepaid.
So if the interest rates will jack up significantly and the treasury yield would go up, then the yield maintenance penalty over time will go down. But if
theory.
it's constant, then, you know, you just have a huge penalty.
Yeah. So Oliver, at what point do rates have to jack up or, you know, you reach that inversion curve on the?
Well, I mean, I just.
It depends
Have
on the
you
number
run
of
anything?
years too. It just,
Yeah.
it really depends on how many years you have left on this loan. So all that factors in.
So on this one loan, the loan terms we had on one of the deals where it was a $12 million loan, 4.75% interest rate, and the yield maintenance after 9 years was still more expensive than step down. And I was very surprised when I realized that. I thought that would not be the case.
No, and I feel like a lot of times people, the sponsors that I'm working with, they'll say, oh, but I want the cheapest rate possible so I can tell my investors, well, I think they need to know all the information. And so a lot of times you just kind of get, hey, this is what we're choosing and this is our options. But there's a lot of options available. And you as an investor, I think it's really important that you look down and go, ask these questions. If you're going to be putting $100,000 or $50,000 or $200,000 into a deal, you're allowed to ask those questions.
Yeah.
You told me I'm going to get, we're going to return this after 5 years. Why are you choosing this program?
Well, there's a lot of deals out there right now that people are stuck in that yield maintenance. And it makes it advantageous to go throw equity at it, jump in, assume that loan, and run down that path.
I told lots of people, assume that loan. That's a great loan.
Yeah.
That's a great loan. Go assume that loan. Because, some of these loans that were done 5-6 years ago, the rates are low 4s, 4.25. We don't have that rate today.
Yeah.
We just don't have that. So, a lot of times I'm like walking away from business, but I'm like, that's a better deal. You should do that,
And so when you're placing a loan out there, does it make any difference to you guys for compensation or whatever, whether your client goes with yield maintenance, step down?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't
It's totally up to them
It doesn't-
what
It's totally
they
up to them.
perceive the risks and benefits are.
Yeah, because we get pricing from the agencies and they'll give us those spreads
Yeah.
and how they work. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I mean, what I don't want the phone call 4 years from now. I'm like, I didn't know what I got.
Right.
That's what I don't want 4 years from now. So I'm playing the long game. It's working. But, people walked away because they're like, well, I don't want to hear that. I'm like, I'm dealing with one in Oklahoma City right now, and they just didn't understand. I kept saying, are you sure you're gonna do this? And I knew they're trying to sell it right now, and they're trying to roll in that gigantic yield maintenance penalty into the new loan, and I'm like, it's the same cash flows it was 3 years ago. It's not a change. So, these deals are hard. So looking at these are really important, and whoever you're working with is important. Okay, now I'm going to go back. I just had to get off my soapbox on that one. But Darren was talking a little bit earlier about kind of what happened in 2008, 2007, 2009, when basically, everything fell apart. Too big to fail. You guys probably all heard about that. But that's when prime just dropped, basically overnight. I was working at Royal Bank of Canada at the time, and just give an example. So I was running the multifamily program for Fannie Mae for Royal Bank, and secure company, right? They're pretty good. I've been around a long time. I'm not worried. We did the loan, the lipstick building in New York that Bernie Madoff was in. Okay, and he had 2/3 of the building, and all that started melting down with Bernie Madoff. That building, $60 million foreclosure, goes on the bank's books. It all starts rippling down to our side. It all starts rippling down. And now all of a sudden they're saying, your group's not profitable anymore. We're turning off the lights. And this happened at GE. This happened at, they weren't hedging their bets right because they didn't think this was going to happen. So, this all goes back to these, on this long-term debt, it's really important to know what your exit strategies are because things like this can't happen. And, you know, you gotta make sure you can recover from them. So I thought this was pretty interesting, but prime continues to go up now. You know, we're looking at a lot of bank deals. LIBOR is gonna be going away next year, so they're gonna have a new thing. So I didn't do a spread on LIBOR. But most of the deals that we're looking at now, when we get bank loans, all our banks are quoting really, I mean, look at that. It's reaching high. You know, they're all quoting over prime. Now you're like, you know,
So Cheryl, let me ask you this question. I see the line is flat. Is that 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14? A lot of debt was put out in those years.
a lot of that was put out in those
When do
years.
you think most of that debt's maturing that was put out in the last 5 years?
It's starting.
It's starting right about
Yeah.
now.
No, we're getting flooded with refinances.
Yeah.
And they're selling them now and then they're coming out of the maturities.
There's a lot, and I'm an anti-timing person trying to time the markets at all. And not that I'm a naysayer on what's going forward, but there's a tremendous amount of debt that's coming to market in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, I'm sorry, 22.
You're right.
God. 18, 19, 20. Decade off here. But, and it's going to be interesting when pro formas were done 5 to 6 years ago and where rates are going to be. And we're expecting one more rate hike this year, maybe November. Maybe what's going to happen in the next 24 to 36 months. So it'll be real interesting to see what cap rates do, which is a terminology, which is a metric we use in our world of buying and selling properties. But I think the next 2 years are going to be very telling times for debt that was put on at 3, 3.5, and now rates are up at 5, 5.25, in the next 24 months or so.
So I did a little kind of a scenario of.
Cheryl, before you go on, getting back to that, let's say you have a loan with either the yield maintenance or a step down, and then you decide year 3 or year 4 you want to refi. How does that impact the prepayment penalty?
It depends what kind of loan you have. Okay, if you have a Fannie Mae loan, you can go Fannie or Freddie, except for the very small balance program, they don't allow it. You can go back and get a supplemental. They call it. It's like a second lien. So you can put another piece on top if you wanted to refi it. So you keep the existing note at 4% or whatever you have. Then you can get another piece on top of it, and you'll have the prevailing rate. Then your loans will be just maturing at the same time. So you can do that as a refinance. But if you end up repaying that whole loan and getting a brand new loan, you still have to do the yield maintenance or whatever kind of repayment penalty you negotiate at the time. Yeah. So I just put together a little. Oh, there. Okay. This is fancy. Okay, I didn't have it this way. Okay, here's what I did. I put together 2 scenarios. Okay.
Sorry, we thought you did that.
No, I don't know how to do that. Okay. I'm gonna put them all up because I don't know how to do it. Okay. So here's a loan I did just, a year ago. And I found it interesting because I did a little bit of this, just a difference in interest savings, but as well as just how the markets have been treated differently. Okay, so this is a year ago. We did a 12-year loan. At that time, we could do 4 years interest only, and the rate was 4.5%. That's great, right? So you got monthly payments, just interest only for the first 4 years. Then the next 8 years, you got that payment. Okay, that's great. Now you look at the same time, this would be a year later, that same deal, we're only going to give them 3 years interest only. And here's the reason why. Okay, is we're looking at these markets, and it depends on, this particular deal, it was in Fort Worth, and it was a little bit of a rougher deal, but we were looking at this, and every time you do interest only, it has to exit out of that year. Meaning that if they prepaid it, we were able to get out of that loan at any given point. Okay, it doesn't exit anymore because of the way we have to do the growth patterns. And that could be a factor of taxes went up, things that were outside of our control. And it can affect all these exit strategies that we're looking at. So in this particular situation, you couldn't get the extra year interest only. Rate went up. That puts your interest only payment, and that puts your monthly payment once you go into amortization. It's just interesting kind of when you look at just this was just, basically looking at, as you're just being aware of like, the changes in the market. Okay, maybe I don't want to put that kind of loan on. Maybe I want to do a 10-year loan, or, you just got to look at all these different options as you're, evaluating these, especially knowing that you're going to only be in the deal for 4 or 5 years. Hey, sometimes you people go, well, I have to have 3 years interest only if the deal doesn't work. I'm like, that's probably a problem. If the deal doesn't work without interest, it's kind of a problem. So, I get the IO portion because it completely, brings up your cash flow, makes the deal sing. It works great, but at the end of the day, it's got to be able to work with or without it.
Well, and the thing on that, think about this: if you have a pro forma just 12 months apart, and look at the difference, $350,000 in that pro forma because of the debt structure. So
Just
if you
the
were
debt
trying to
structure.
sell, if you were trying to sell, if you had pro forma, let's just say that was a 3-year deal, not one, but you pro forma the 17 numbers, and 3 years later the 18 numbers were there because of just interest rates and the new loans are going up. Your pro forma just got whacked $350,000. And that's what you will. You go to your sponsor, and if your sponsor can't answer, step down, yield maintenance, or can't go back.
Interest only.
Interest
Interest only.
Can't answer some of those basic questions in the loan, then you need to really consider. Yeah, you need to really consider. Are you with the right sponsor?
Yeah, they should know all these questions and be educated on this.
Your exit strategy is a game changer, and your debt will drive your management on the front end and your debt on the back end will drive the performance of that property as much as anything else out there.
So if I would come to you and ask you for help to get a loan on a project we are working on, and I would like to ask you to give us a step down versus yield maintenance. Are there any loan types where you would have to come back to me and tell me, I can't offer you a step down, it has to be yield maintenance? Or as long as I'm willing to take a 20 basis points penalty, we can negotiate something and do that?
Yeah, you can do whatever. What happens is sometimes, like, because they're debt service constrained, so let's say, like, I need a 125 debt service on this particular deal, okay? And I'll just use this as an example. Let's say I need a 125 debt service on this. And now you say, I don't want yield maintenance, I want step downs, okay? And that rate now goes to closer to 5%, okay? I'm now not getting to a 125 debt service on this loan amount. Now your loan amount might go to 9.8. If they go to 9.9, you can still get the loan. Or maybe I'll say, okay, I can't get you on the step down now. I can't get you 2 years. I can only get you 2 years interest only instead of 3 years interest only. You can still get the loans, everything. Just sometimes the terms change because you can't. It's usually debt service for a little bit. It's not because of the yield maintenance or step down. It's just because sometimes when the rate is higher, it just stresses the loan more. Who knows?
So do you guys have any sort of a debt pro forma that you do that sort of throws a couple scenarios out there where you could show us, here's what yield maintenance looks like based on these assumptions where interest rates are going, here's what your prepayment, to kind of compare those two?
We do. I mean, I do those for people whenever they need them.
Okay.
They don't like to look at it that way, our underwriters, so I do those myself.
Yeah.
And I'll give you some scenarios, yeah.
No, but that's extremely important. When you're looking at your exit strategy and what it's going to cost you to get out of the deal. There's so many people that I'm looking at that so underestimate that to a large
So this yield
degree.
maintenance, it also affects how many years of interest only you have. So a lot of times when you go into these calculators, you've got to make sure you know exactly how many years interest only you got on that, when it started, when it ended. So those affect all of those prepayment calculations. Because if you didn't pay much down on that principal, and then you're paying it off in 4 years, it's going to be even bigger.
What happens if the market tanks and you need to have that 5-year turn to maybe a 9-year? Do you have scenarios that you can build for that, for different payment debt structures?
What do you mean 5 to 9?
Well, if the market tanks and there's anything that happens in the market to where you think you could sell a property for more as an exit strategy, but then you can't, then you say, okay, well, let's wait till the market gets better.
But you're already in a loan for long term.
That's right. So as far as assuming that you're going to be 5-year and then get out, but then you can't do that.
Well, are you asking if your loan terms are only 5 years and you want to extend them?
That's right. If you want to extend.
Oh, usually, ours don't work that way. Those are bank loans, so you can do extensions on those.
Yeah.
Ours balloon. If you do a 5-year loan, it balloons. If you do 7, it balloons. 10, it balloons. Yeah, and it's due at that time. So the longer term gives you some more flexibility. You know, I do a lot of actually 10-7 loans. That's real popular. So I do a 10-year term, 7 years yield maintenance, and then it opens up at 1% prepay for the last 3 years. It's like a 15 basis point adder, so it's not quite that. So it's kind of in between those two, and that's a popular product that people like. We can get some different options. So it just depends on kind of, you know.
Anytime you exceed that 7th year, as you pass that point, you drop down to a 1% prepay.
So then it's not like 5 or 4, you know, it's not stepped down prepays. It's just, you can open it up. You can do 10-5s, 10-year term, 5 years. You can, I mean, there's all these different options you can do. And so I always tell people, you know what your options are, because I mean, I don't like to give people 30 options, but if you tell me what you want, I can design something to give you several options for that. It's just a lot of times people go, I just want the lowest rate, and I want max IO and the lowest rate, and I want 80%. We can get some of those, but sometimes we can't because just the cap rates are too low these days.
So if you would have a 12-year term, what would be the typical yield maintenance time frame? Would it be 7 years, or would it be 9 years?
No, on the 12-year terms, they're usually 11 and a half years. Now you can structure differently. You just get it priced. It's usually, you know, an adder for that. But right off the shelf, it's 11 and a half years. And then it'll open up at 1%.
And then 10 is very often 7.
10 is usually 9.5 years of yield maintenance. Most of these that are structured, like when we get a pricing grid every morning from Fannie and Freddie, and it's basically the on-the-shelf pricing is a 10-year loan, 9.5 years yield maintenance.
But are you saying a moment ago you had a 10-7?
Yes, you can price anything that you want on any of these loans.
Just other parameters will change.
Other parameters will change. It could affect interest only. It will affect the rate a little bit, but then you get what you really need and what you want for your investment.
Yeah. Paying an extra 20 or 30 basis points to get, I mean, we all know to get an extra 2, 3.
When rates are in the 4s, that's a no-brainer. It's
well, I mean, I have to admit, what I've unfortunately seen that many deal sponsors, they don't even ask for different options. I've been told so many times that yield maintenance was the only one that was available.
That's
and I'm
not true
like,
at all.
I don't believe this. I'm sorry.
No, a lot of times you have like mortgage brokers that aren't lenders that'll go out and go, hey, you know, here's your quote. Well, no, we want what's best because we're just servicing this loan. We want what's best. We don't want you to call us 3 years from now and tell us you're unhappy. I mean,
That's a good point you guys bring up. The difference between a mortgage broker and a lender. Because there's a lot of people in this room that are very familiar with mortgage brokers at the commercial level. And working directly with a lender, you're going to get far more, what did I say? Authority? No. You're going to get far more options. You're going to get far more truth. Maybe not truth. I don't want to say that. You're going to be able to get far more options. Because I think mortgage brokers get a kind of a promoted loan product.
or they may just go with one lender or
And they
something.
push it out with that lender.
But I mean, I don't want to make it sound too negative, but if a lender would offer you the yield maintenance penalty versus step down, wouldn't the lender effectively make more money in case of a prepayment buyout?
No, because that goes directly to Fannie and Mae. That goes to them. We don't get that.
And they lower your taxes as a result of getting all that additional income. That's just a joke.
Yeah, I was like, what? I didn't think about that. I was like, that's not true.
Well, Cheryl, can you talk a little bit about what Tom and I, kind of fell into this whole HUD program in 2010. And as you guys know, we promote that for a good reason, and that's the 40-year amortization, 40-year term. We haven't talked about that because it's not as widely used. But can you share the pros and cons?
Yeah, so it's not as widely used because a lot of times, as your investors, you're buying new properties, and there's not enough time to do a HUD loan. If there was, they'd probably be doing more of those. And they also don't really. Oh, let me back up. HUD loans are great, like a new construction. They're great. And you're refinancing a deal. It's a great loan. They're very, very expensive to do. They're usually about $100,000 on loan fees to do those. And that's not like in my pocket. Okay, that's like extra engineering fees, extra appraisals, HUD fees. It's just, it gets really, really expensive. So the bigger the deal, the more it makes sense on these. But they're long-term loans, and you can lock up the rate, for long-term debt, 40 years on new construction for, 4%, 4.5%. They've got really, really attractive programs. The older the property, though, the longer, they're not going to go as long on those. So let's say like you've got a 1980s property, they're gonna look at it and go, okay, we're looking at it like we've only got 20 years left of life on this property, or maybe 30 years left. So they're only gonna give you that long, which is also gonna be like the full amortization. So a lot of times if they're looking at like a 1980s property, the numbers just don't start to work in my head. I mean, I start looking at these, I'm like, sure. You know, because what happens is also on these, you also have, on the HUD loans, they have a higher replacement reserve. Do you guys know what replacement reserves are on these loans? So the lender will hold your replacement reserves, and then it's kind of like a forced piggy bank. Well, in HUD, they jack those up because they look at it and go, we know we're gonna have this property for 40 years. We wanna make sure that you're putting that money in. We know you're gonna have a roof that you're gonna have to replace in 15 years. They're gonna add that in your replacement reserve schedule. So I can't remember the last one we did. It was well over 400.
400
On
a
the
year.
reserve?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 400, yeah.
Yeah, but that was low. I thought that was low, relatively speaking.
Replacement reserves are when HUD asks you to set aside so much money per year per unit. And then like on the, one of our oldest projects that we have with HUD is the 2010-11 project. We probably have $300,000 in what's called replacement reserves to do capital improvements. And you end up starting to use those in year 8, 9.
Yeah, you can't even like use all the money every year.
Yeah, we're
It
just
just
building
sits
up this big account. And HUD says, we just want to make sure you have enough money to not only service the loan, but we also want to make sure when you start needing appliances in year 8, 9, and 10,
The money's there.
the money's there, and we're not worried about it at all. You're not coming to me looking for any additional money, or you're doing cash calls or your investors, or you're doing something.
And I have a whole like thing, if you want me to do it next time or something, but on all the different loan programs they have, like HUD, the difference between HUD, Fannie and Freddie, and all those, because there are big differences, and a lot of times people get confused, and you know, they're really, it's not even like, nobody ever comes to me and goes, hey, I want a HUD loan, and can you get me a Freddie quote? It doesn't usually happen, because you're usually going down one path or the other. And so we're looking for, because they're so different, particularly because HUD loans are, they're usually locked out for several years, and, the interest rates are they're for like long-term holders. They're just getting harder to get out of.
And how long we assume?
Yes, of course. Yes. So that's kind of what I was going to show you on these, but these, I think that was, that's.
Let me do this. I want to take, any other questions for Cheryl? So I'm going to take an example of kind of an exit strategies and what we're doing on a property that we just recently did and why we did what we did. And I think it'd be a good example to take what Cheryl shared with us. So any other questions for Cheryl right now? Or she's not going anywhere. We can ask her here in a second. I don't know if there's a button. Can you push it?
Yeah, I'm going to bring
Push
it.
button?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm not sure.
Now I'm going to go here. Right here.
Okay.
Let's go. Let me start here. So Tom and I in Presario, we kind of, after what happened in 2010-11, we said we really want to understand the HUD product because we didn't ever want to get caught in a downturn market and have to, all of a sudden our 5-year loan runs out and we have nowhere to go. And there was a 36-month period there was pretty dicey for a lot of people. A lot of people we know lost properties, big commercial properties from that. So one of the things we look at, and this is our kind of targeted range today for looking at assets, but we look to do an IRR of a new product, a new construction, new development between the 9 and 12%. You said, well, that may sound a little low on an IRR because a lot of times you see IRRs 18, 19, 20. Well, the first 2 years of this, we're not generating any income during construction. Okay, so that's why our time value of money, we're not paying out those first couple of years. Second thing we look for is our cash on cash. So we look to return, and we think that's very important. I like this metric a lot better. What are you generating real cash? Because quite frankly, I could manipulate this IRR number. I could borrow $100,000 from you today and pay it back within a year and give you an IRR with a nice return of 40%. But did you really make any money? Because maybe it was only, $6,000. But here, you start looking at cash on cash. This is the number we target right here. It's the 8 to 10%. We do like to still keep the preferred returns. I think the preferred returns over the last 2 or 3 years have started to not be those 10s and 12s that we saw 3 or 4 years ago as investors. We're seeing more of those 8s, 7s, and 6, especially on the new development. But we also like to target at least as a multiple, and a multiple meaning is if I put in $100,000 in year 5, I get $175,000 back in total, which is our cash flow and the sale of the property. So that's a
And or
benchmark we use.
refinance.
And or refinance. And that's a very good point, because we'll come back to that slide. So this is a property that we looked at that we did not do a HUD loan. And then I'm going to tell you the reasons why, but here's the exit strategy on it, because Tom and I went back and forth on, risk and reward and safety and just everything we can think of that what could go wrong. We need to try to protect the investment. And I'll get to that on the next slide. But on this project, the 5-year, the IRR hit when it was above our target here. The stabilized cash on cash is at 11%, so we did well here. The preferred return, we're able to do year 7%. And this one's a little different. We structured this as a preferred equity, meaning this is not an accruing preferred return, but a preferred return that's more like a loan. We start getting paid the 7% immediately in the first quarter. And I'll explain how we did that with the developer. And then our year 5 exit was above the 175 at the 18 here. Our timeline, construction starting right now. They started putting the roads in. Construction completion here. Project stabilization, equity multiple, year 5 sale. Oh, good. Go back the other way. One more. Yeah. So this project was a little different than our typical HUD loan, and we decided to go forward with this on a couple of key things. And here's our exit strategy and our entry strategy. But a little bit more about it's a good sized project, 248 units. It's in the northwest side of San Antonio. Do you guys know 1604 Petranco?
Mm-hmm.
That's becoming they've taken Petranco from a little farm market road, and now it's 4 lanes with shoulders and curbs and gutters, and Microsoft and CVS and Flicks. Is that something over in Round Rock, a movie theater chain? Yeah, they bought land across the street. So it's a developing area over there. And San Antonio continues to show growth of jobs and population. So on this deal, we did a 7% annualized return that starts paying Q1. Now what the developer did, he did a trade-off with us. We've told him our concerns about being in a product that wasn't one of our 40-year construction loans. And he said, well, what's the issues? I said, well, we don't want to be caught on interest rate risk. So what he decided to do as part of our negotiations, he said, look, I will contribute my developer fee to pay your investors the 7% starting now. So that time value of money, we're actually getting cash Q1. We're not going through that 2-year development stage. Okay, so we're starting to get cash Q1. The second thing we did on this one is that we said, look, we want to be in a preferred equity position. So let's say hypothetically that we are going through and it's time to take the loan to permanent financing after the interest-only construction. Right now, there's about $16 million between our loan amount and the projected exit price. Okay, if that exit price is cut all the way down to 10, 5, 4, whatever that is, because the market is really soft and we have to get out of that, the first $3.75 million come to us. Period. Okay, so we get the first 3.75 before he gets anything. And so we put that in there. It's called a capital stack. So you have your lender debt, then us, then him. Okay, so that way, if the market were to do this while we're in construction or lease up, and where it's time that our loan's maturing, we're the first chunk of money out. So we've got, yes, Tom.
It's simple numbers. This is a $36 million project. It's got to sell for less than $24 million for us to lose any money.
Thank you. So the math man did it for me. So we're protected on this one. Okay, we're getting cash up front. We're getting the protection of the preferred equity, and the third thing on this one is that we actually got 24% of the back end, which 20 of that 24 goes to the equity, and our promote is 4%. So 20 of that goes. So you're getting the luxury, and I do call this a luxury. We kind of got all 3 things. We get back end upside, we get protection on the capital stack with the preferred equity, and we start making 7% day one. Okay, so that was our position in protecting the asset for the equity investors. Now the loan is pretty nice too, in that we have 3 years of interest only with 2 one-year extensions. So we have a 5-year loan of interest only should we choose to do that. Okay. We may decide to go permanent in year 3 or sell in year 3. Year 4, permanent or sell. Year 5, permanent or sell. Now the lender gave us terms on the sheet saying if in the event you would like to refinance your interest only loan, I think the loan is, Allison's not here. I think the loan is, let's just say it's 20 million.
19.5.
What is it? What's it, Brian? 19.5. Let's say, thank you for reading that OM. So let's just say it's 20 million. So I do the math real quick. The lender is willing to say, we will do a refi to you, and we will now give you $22 million loan. You take the $2 million, and we'll do 3 more years of interest only. So we could be at the end of year 2, leased up really well. The bank's going, okay, you've leased up well, you've done construction, everything's working well, you've proven you've got the rents. We'll extend that loan for another 3 years of interest only with 2 one-more-year extensions.
Wow.
All right. So that was a negotiation we had between developer, us, and lender. So we have effectively contractually today, we have 5. We could probably have 7 if we really had a performing property on that. And then, so we've got a lot of, I guess, cushion in there. And then the other thing that Cheryl mentioned, and that Tom and I like quite a bit, is that we could go into a refinance into a HUD product
after 3 years.
after 3 years, which would allow us to get a 35-year amortization and a 35-year term. Okay, so I think we thought through this quite a bit on how we structured on the front end and how we're structuring it on the back end by not using a HUD product to begin with the construction. However, we thought about the exit strategy and the entry and exit strategy quite a bit. And we got the terms that everybody liked.
But it also says a lot about the developer, that he believes in the product enough
Oh, yeah.
to give you the first piece
Sure.
on top.
Yeah.
Because some guy, if he didn't believe in it, he'd be like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, no, and he's not taking, I mean, he ends up through the whole 2-year project, taking about 120 grand on the front end in 2 years, which this project is more like about a 600 grand developer fee. So he's contributing almost 500 back into the project.
Is the loan that you're getting started, is it an agency loan or is it a bank loan?
It's Wells Fargo, and you know what, how would I answer that question? Do you know?
It's a bank loan.
It
It's
is
not an
a-
agency.
That would be a bank,
Yeah,
they don't have an agency group,
It's balance, they do.
it's a balance sheet.
It's a balance sheet loan,
Correct.
yeah, because they can't do that on a construction basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I just wanted to think, good question. Yeah, that is a bank loan, there's a lot of flexibility, well, you just answered the question 15 minutes ago. Yeah, okay.
Have you worked with the developer before?
It's a good question. So the developer is anybody here in the Lockhart project that we just did, that was a HUD loan. Okay, a couple of them, sorry. So that was one, we did the 40-year amortization, 40-year term. Same guy. And I can tell you right now what he's doing in Lockhart, we're incredibly pleased. He's already a month ahead of schedule. So he's about get it done, get it done, get it done. So yes, we do have a small history with him. But this is one that we're just wrapping up right now. But we thought about this extensively. How do we get into the project? How do we get the right terms? And how do we get out of it? Because this is not one of our 40-year loans that we typically do. And we can do more of these, and we're going to. If we structure it right on the front end and on the back end.
Now, are you full on this one already?
Almost.
It's some of it.
Yeah, we're within a couple $100 grand. This is $3.7 million raise here. I think this project I think the
Great
project will
location.
outperform what we're putting on paper here. I think it's going to do incredibly well. I mean, the growth and the numbers we're seeing over there are incredibly strong. Yes.
So Darren, just, talking about like this year, next year, if rates go up relative to today, the way you structured it, if it went up another, 50 basis points or something, how would that look differently, or would you make decisions that would be different in terms of how you structure it?
Well, if rates started to go up here, because we have a LIBOR plus, so we could get impacted, by 20, 25, 30, 35 basis points. on that, but we have so much cushion in the deal because the way we structured it with that preferred equity. I mean, if things got really ugly, you know, first of all, this is a guarantee, contractual guarantee. So we're getting 7% off the top, period. That's not a negotiable number for our contract. Okay. So this may get slightly impacted, and we did a sensitivity table that's in the offering memorandum. Did we send that out, Brian? Yeah, we did. Yeah, and we show rates going down. I mean, rates going up, rents staying flat, rates going up, rents trailing slightly up, rates going up, expenses going up. So you see, and you can go, okay, which metric do I want to pick, you know, in a what if world? It has to get pretty ugly before it really impacts us. And to Tom's point, how much money is in there? $15 million?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could impact the multiple, and it could impact this, but it's not going to impact this.
And thank you for that. I guess I didn't ask it clearly enough. And that is, you know, say you had to start all over with this.
Okay.
And the project is what it is, but like the rates are half of what you have.
Would we do it again?
Yeah.
Based off the market analysis, we would. If we were up 50 basis points today, we would, because the way San Antonio is growing and where TxDOT is placing, where Costco goes and where TxDOT goes.
This goes all back to those employers again.
And when Microsoft
That job
goes,
growth is going on.
I mean, we're fortunate that we don't have as much, I guess, what risk in the rental market compared to other areas. You know, just because the numbers keep trending north and more people keep moving here and more jobs.
I'll give you an example. Like, let's say like Longview, for example. You know, it's just a little bit outside of Tyler.
Still in Texas.
It's still Texas, right? But you've got, like, on an exit for like any of these agency loans we do, we can't grow the rents the way we do like a normal market, like a San Antonio, Austin, or Dallas. We have to grow the rents at like 1% instead of 2% per year. And so this affects the exit strategies. You're like, hey, it's a great deal, only, you know, 40,000 a unit. Well, it's always going to be 40,000 a unit, you know. So you have to kind of look at those things, you know, and go, you know, is the value really there for the upside, you know? And when there's no job growth and there's no markets, and I'm not throwing Longview under the bus. It's just,
Sure you are.
But I'm thinking of a deal that I've recently looked at where it's
And you're gonna price that loan differently.
you're going to price that loan differently because there's more risk, and that's going to be a more expensive interest rate.
And the market analysis that we have to do for all these properties, I mean, they confirm, and they've been spot on for the last, decade. I mean, they know where these companies, they know where jobs are going, they know who's buying the land, they know where the monies are going for roads and infrastructure. And we're just I got to tell you guys this. Lockhart, I'll give you a couple examples. Lockhart, and I've told half of you guys this, 10 years ago, I'd have shot myself if you ever said I was investing in Lockhart. I want more of that deal now. All right. What's going on in Lockhart with what they're doing out there for development and jobs? I mean, the city has made a commitment to bringing in businesses. They just announced a hydroponics place. They just announced a new development from one of the home builders out there. There was a new glass manufacturing place put out there. And what was the last thing?
Some high-paying tech companies going out.
Yeah, another tech company's going out there.
Those first pages.
And guess why they're going out? And one of the reasons they picked this because of Opportunity Zone. They're actually being able to take it, and I don't know all the details on it, but their business qualified to go in the Opportunity Zone, and they bought the land for that Opportunity Zone, and about half of Lockhart is in that Opportunity Zone. And what that is, that's a Donald Trump tax 20. I mean, I don't even know, what it all is.
That's our next education.
Yeah, next education series, Opportunity Zones, and what's going on out there. But I literally, what I've learned about Lockhart now, I wish we could do more out there, and I think we're going to be incredibly successful in that project as well. Oh, and everything going on 130, all the way from Pflugerville all the way to Lockhart. It's all being bought up.
We just looked at 2 projects brought by separate developers, both on 130.
Yeah. So it's happening out there. So, but I'm very pleased with that one. I mean, we're in that trajectory of growth. San Antonio, this one, same thing. We have another one that we're not quite contractually there yet, but I think we'll be there within the next week or two. It's in Bryan, College Station. It's not a student housing project. It is the jobs supporting that massive university. That university is at 75,000 students right now. 65. Yeah.
It's 68 and it's growing to 80 by 2025.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting about Brian. I'm not gonna rain on your parade.
No,
but I
please.
am.
No.
Fannie and Freddie both say that is the worst performing student housing market out of the entire country.
Yeah.
You
And
see,
Isn't that,
did you say Brian or College Station
oh,
or?
it's Brian, yeah, right there. They said to me, I mean, like, you know, I don't have all the research behind it, but, you know. we've seen
And why do
several
they
different-
say that? What, is it supply? Is it?
No,
Rents?
because
Is
it's that they're just not performing as well, you know, and they probably do have too much supply, but they're increasing their enrollment.
Has anybody been to Bryan and College Station in the
It's
last
booming.
2 years? Yeah, so there is one, lacrosse, we've been out there together. So I think about it. Yeah, the amount of student housing on Texas Avenue and all around the university is massive, just massive. You go 3 or 4 miles out and they don't have enough housing to support all the people supporting the university. Our project is about 4 miles away. It's in Bryan. It's in a place called Miramount. No, what's it called? What's it called? Oakmont. That's the development. Yeah, Oakmont. Yeah, it's a master plan community. So it's one of those with street lights and sidewalks, you know, with red brick. That's, you know, it's one of those real traditional. And we had actually architectural, design committees that had to approve everything we were doing. But we just, my whole point in this is we like where growth is going. We like where the jobs are going. We like, you know, where's the incentives for companies to go there. And that's the markets we're going to follow. So. Any other questions about debt on this? Because I really wanted, you know, this was kind of my topic that I wanted to get out to everybody. When you're looking at investments, you guys had some great questions about debt. Okay, ask your sponsors, because your exit strategy could make or break the deal. If there's not a multiple or a very clear strategy to do that, then, you know, I would second guess your what your your investment may be. Just make sure your goals align with that exit strategy that they have, that investment opportunity they have.
I would have another question for Cheryl.
Yeah, you need to get back up here. Come on. You're the lender.
So very often deal sponsors trying to leverage the hell out of the deals, and they're going for 75 to 80% loan cost to loan to value. And so with typical banks, if you go into an economic downturn and things go sour, and you end up basically with 100% or 110% loan to cost or loan to value once you're in the project, banks very often have the right to pull the loan or.
Are you talking about a construction loan now? Or are you talking about an acquisition, like a stabilized property?
No, once you have a stabilized property. But for example, if your occupancy rate drops from 95 to 85 or 80% and other parameters.
I have one of those right now in San Antonio.
So
Just
the
like
question is, if your loan to cost or loan to value goes from 80% at the origin, when you originated the loan, to 100 or 110, do Fannie or Freddie usually do they have the right to pull the loan? Or they have
You're on the watch list. You keep paying the debt. If you don't pay the debt service, that's a separate story. And they may have a capital call or something between the investors. But I honestly, Fannie and Freddie don't want these loans back. They will do everything they can so that they don't have to take the loan back. They will do everything they can. And sometimes you just, we usually find it's not really it's usually the property management company. It's usually when you get into it, there's usually a property management company issue. Not usually like the sponsor on the deal, the key principal. A lot of times they just don't know what's going on. And we start digging into these general ledgers and we're like, he's just milking it, like just admin costs, locator fees, they all seem to roll up to the same 1-800 number, and it's usually becomes a management company issue. So, who you're investing with and who the management company is really important. So yeah, I have one in San Antonio right now and it's underwater. It shouldn't be, but it is. And it's because the management company.
Why haven't you called me to come in and say that? I just learned something tonight.
So, and all these partners are worried because they're worried, we're going to call the note. I'm like, you're going to keep paying you're on a watch list, but, we do think the property will turn around. So, they're in the process of fixing it. But no, the answer is, as long as you pay your debt service, they're not going to call it.
Again, guys, we're grateful that you came out. Spend a little time, talk to a few people in here before you head out. We've got plenty of food and more drinks. And I've got a record player over here that I'm gonna turn on.